Good afternoon. Thank you for coming this afternoon. We are going to update everybody on the homicide of Derby Wagner Richardson, who was killed on March 22nd, 1987. Joining me here today are Chief Alex Ramirez, Lieutenant Sarah Zupke, District Attorney Patricia Hansen, Detective Todd Lauer, Detective Tanya Scarvers, and some of the family of Derby Wagner Richardson, her aunt Ellie Schmidt, Ellie's daughter and cousin of Derby, Julie Schrader, and Derby's brother, Brian Linder. Also here are some former investigators and officers who also worked on this case, Jim Ugershian and Al Fallion. Chief Ramirez will speak first, and we'll go from there and save questions to the end.
Good afternoon. Chief Alex Ramirez, A-L-E-X-R-A-M-I-R-E-Z. On March 22nd, 1987, at around 1:30 a.m., the Racine Police Department received a call from Steinberg Engineering, 1600 block of Gould Street, to report a missing person. When police arrived, Steinberg management met them and explained that their security guard, Derby Wagner Richardson, missed her 1 a.m. check-in. Management stated that Derby is a third-shift security guard who was very responsible, never missing a check-in. Derby was not located within the facility. However, numerous pieces of evidence were located indicating that Derby was removed from the property against her will during the struggle. The Racine Police Department immediately began adding additional resources to the investigation and began locating pieces of clothing and personal items strewn about the streets some distance away from Steinberg. At approximately 8:30 a.m., Racine Police located Derby's vehicle in an alley in the 1500 block of Layard Avenue, which is just north of Steinberg. Derby was located in the trunk, bound and deceased from her neck and wrist being slashed, turning this from a missing person investigation to a homicide investigation. At the time, Derby was 28 years old. Death was the final indignity Derby would suffer in her lifetime. In June 1986, Derby and her husband, Fred Wagner Richardson, separated after several years of difficult marriage. In December of 1986, Derby filed for formal divorce proceedings. Derby and Fred Wagner Richardson owned a substantial amount of real estate in the city of Racine, which was set to be divided between the two of them. On January 21st, 1987, Mr. Wagner Richardson assaulted Derby in front of their two daughters during a child exchange. Mr. Wagner Richardson subsequently was convicted of this battery in late 1987. On January 26, 1987, Derby signed a temporary restraining order against Fred Wagner Richardson. On March 21st, 1987, an attorney visit between Derby and Fred Wagner Richardson and their respective attorneys took place to negotiate the division of properties and rental income for the upcoming divorce finalization. The meeting ended with Fred Wagner Richardson leaving the meeting in a way that Derby immediately felt that her life was in danger. Her attorney agreed and informed the Racine Police Department of the incident and requested extra attention to Derby. Within hours of this meeting, Derby was brutally murdered. The ensuing investigation included hundreds of interviews, thousands of collected documents, records, pieces of evidence, and countless man-hours of the next nearly 4 decades. In the early part of 2024, further information was received that Fred Wagner Richardson, who is a convicted felon, was illegally in possession of firearms. As a result of this investigation, an arrest warrant was issued for Mr. Fred Wagner Richardson. On March 28th of this year, Fred Wagner Richardson was taken into custody during a search warrant executed at his properties. The operation to take Fred Wagner Richardson into custody was thoroughly planned to the most minute detail, and was completed safely and without incident with assistance from the Racine Fire Department and the Racine County District Attorney's Office. Mr. Wagner Richardson has been charged with first-degree murder, 4 counts of possession of a firearm by a felon, 2 counts of possession of electronic weapon. Fred Wagner Richardson is currently out on a $50,000 bond. Fred was 41 at the time of Derby's death. He is currently 83 years old. The Racine Police Department extends our heartfelt gratitude to all the officers involved in this investigation spanning 4 decades, aimed at bringing justice to Derby Wagner Richardson. Their relentless determination and commitment to upholding justice serves as a testament to the values upheld by law enforcement. Their dedication to this case exemplifies the department's unwavering resolve in seeking truth and accountability. To the family of Derby Wagner Richardson, we are very sorry for your loss, and we hope that the arrest of Fred Wagner Richardson brings some closure to this tragedy. We'd also like to thank the cast and crew from Cold Justice for all their assistance with this case.
Ideally, it would be my sister, Ruth, standing here. She fought so hard and for so long to get justice for her daughter's murder. Ruth can't be here physically, but I believe she is with us in spirit. I don't know what Ruth would say, but I do know that I can speak for our entire family in expressing deep gratitude to everyone who was involved in making it possible for us to be here today. A special thank you to Detectives Todd Lauer and Tanya Scarvers, not only for the work they did, but also for their support, kindness, and compassion throughout this process. Thank you.
All right, now we'll open up to a few questions.
If one of the detectives could speak to the evidence that was had and collected, witness statements, those even close to Frederick. What was the reasoning as to not being able to arrest him and charge him with Derby's murder back in 1987? And how did that change? What specifically, I guess the smoking gun, would you say, would change that, raise that bar? And I think that would be also a question to Ms. Hansen.
Sure, and that we've asked ourselves that question many times. Why not years ago? The case was always there, right? We were able to lay it out in a way where we felt it was a common sense case, and it was ready to be put in front of a jury and let them decide.
Then why wasn't it put in front of the jury, I guess is my question.
I can't speak to what the thought was 37 years ago as far as why not back then. I don't know.
And then in those intervening years, what was the status of this case? If there seemed to have been enough evidence there years ago, at least somewhat circumstantially, but we've seen cases go to trial and that evidence being used to prove a case and prosecute. So I guess, Ms. Hansen, I'm still kind of grasping at straws as to what changed to then say, yeah, we're going to charge him now.
Sure. When the case was originally investigated in 1987, that's 4 or 5 district attorneys ago from me. So I know that over the years it has been reviewed a couple of times since then, but now we put the case together in a fashion this time, and knowing now that we've lost Derby's mother, who was steadfast in remaining in contact with us, this is my first review of the case, and I've decided that while the case is circumstantial, certainly there are a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and it's not like a case I would present today with hours of video and surveillance cameras. But ultimately, I think that Derby deserves for a jury of her peers to make a decision on this case, and now that it is in my hands, in my office, we're going to make that happen. I can't speak for those who went before me.
Go ahead.
There was, as a part of the original complaint that was filed and that warrant that was executed on Mound Avenue and the other properties, it indicated that there was a bolt cutter that was found that was identical to the one that was collected as evidence off of Spring Street back in 1987 and identical to the one that Fred purchased in the following month after Derby's death. What's the significance of that as it relates to this case? As it was included within the original charging documents, so I would assume that there's a reason that was included in there.
The significance of it is tying Fred and his possessions to the underlying crime and when it occurred. I mean, there are lots of bolt cutters, but he seems to have a pattern of having the same ones.
An affinity for that type of bolt cutter?
I don't know if I'd go as far to say affinity, but certainly a preference.
Other than the bolt cutter and the fact that you're looking at it for the first time, the circumstances seem to be the same to me. Have they changed at all?
Again, I can't speak to what someone else saw in this case. As I've indicated, I think that there's enough puzzle pieces of the circumstantial evidence to bring this case forward.
So the puzzle pieces were already always there. You just believe the jury can put the puzzle together.
Correct.
On count two, I'm just wondering if there isn't a slight typo. The possession of a firearm by a felon, does that count relate to the recent search this year?
Yes, he had four weapons in his house that.
Okay. The complaint says the unnamed defendant on about Sunday, March 22nd. So there was no weapons from 1987.
No, they're not. That should be the 28th.
Okay. And he is released on $50,000 bond. Is that the situation?
Correct.
Is that a cash bail that he posted, 50K cash?
Yes.
There's a connection to the Philippines in the criminal complaint. Is there a worry that there's a flight risk going to another country?
Yes. That's why we asked for $1 million. We didn't get it.
Did the judge revoke his passport at all?
Yes.
So your office asked for $1 million, judge wrote it as 50K cash.
The court commissioner who heard the initial appearance, yes.
I thought I read that it was a signature bond, or was it $50,000 cash?
It's 50,000 cash, 50,000 signature.
Is there a worry as a DA that you charge a case 40, 30, however many years later, and it gets away from you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is not the kind of case where I've explained to Derby's family that a jury could see this differently. But again, I think no other suspects have been developed in all this time. There are no other indications pointing to another motive for her death. And those are the arguments that we'll make to the jury, obviously. And I think that before we no longer have the people who care about her the most, we have to try to do this.
Is there parts of the case, witnesses, that maybe increase this timeline that would be essential to bringing this case to trial because of the amount of that people may die over the years, and that witnesses that you might need for a case, maybe some have been lost over the years already?
Some have already, yes. That is another factor that I considered. Right now, I have the people that I need to put the case together. But, you know, some of my retired friends from the police department are aging. I am every day. So, unfortunately, it's now or never, I think, to bring this case forward.
The original complaint is a lot longer compared to what I was just handed right now, and I haven't matched them up. Can you explain why that is? Or why
I charged it prior to them executing the search warrant, so that there would be a warrant for Mr. Wagner Richardson's arrest. It's changed for the amended complaint just has the new charges from the evidence that was found in his house at the time of the search warrant.
He has 5 or 6 aliases. Can you tell us anything about those?
I know that he has 5 or 6 aliases. I know that he has used other names in the past, but I don't know. I don't have a lot of details on that.
Is there anything in the case that she and her lawyer both asked for protection from the police department 12 hours before she was found dead, according to the criminal complaint?
I'm not sorry. I don't think I understand your question.
Yeah, so after the, and bear with me because I'm doing it from memory, but after the...
Oh, her attorney?
Had in 1987, her attorney and herself, presumably, asked for protection from the Racine Police Department.
Correct.
I understand that you weren't working in 1987, but is there anything in the case that shows that she received that protection?
I can't answer that. Do you know?
That request for extra attention is what started spinning a lot of wheels in the immediate aftermath of her missing. There was some surveillance that was done immediately that were sending officers in kind of different directions to follow up on that extra attention request. So as far as in that 12 hours, I can't speak if there was action taken, but immediately after the report of her missing, there was.
So what you're saying, and I apologize to the family, this woman basically asked for protection, and then 12 hours later she was dead, but there's no evidence that shows that she received protection?
She went to work that night at 7 o'clock, a few hours after the attorney visit, and I can't speak if she was checked on while at work or prior to her going to work.
Two more. That's it. Now we're going to wrap this up.
I guess, when did you as detectives both take a fresh look at this case, and how long did you spend on this case before you sent it over to Ms. Hanson's office?
It's been my life since November, night and day. Maybe.
Yeah, I had a chance to look at it several years back, but there was nothing that I could go on from that point. And then when it was brought up again, I picked Detective Lauer to help me out with it, and we took our eyes and put it on it so that we can give it a fresher look.
Was there a time then when Frederick returned to the U.S.? Do you know the time frame because of that time that was spent in the Philippines that maybe started some of this?
I don't believe he stayed an extended time in the Philippines. We know he has properties there. He has family there. But him himself, this has been his primary and then traveled there. But we do know he has family that stays there full time.
But that this is his residence and has been for an extended period
Yes.
of time, even dating back to 1987.
That's correct. The properties that we searched on the 28th were properties that him and Derby shared together.
For
Okay.
for family, really quick. For family.
Yeah.
To have a cold case like this closed up, to have we talk a lot about getting justice for people. Does it feel like justice? If you guys can come to the microphone. Do you all feel like justice was served and justice? I mean, it's like 40 years. How does your family feel right now?
Well, I'm still kind of shocked because it's been so long, but I'm thankful there has been an arrest, and I wish Mr. Wagner Richardson a fair and thorough trial. And yeah, beyond that, it's been really hard on all of us. Just
That night,
going on.
back in 1987, when you all heard about Debbie's passing, do you remember that night?
I do remember. I got called over to my mother's house by my stepfather, and she told me the news, and of course I remember the look on my mother's face, and we all drove to Racine to meet with people at the police department, and it was kind of surreal at the time. I guess still shutting a lot of it out, but I didn't know what to think. I just thought, why hasn't he been arrested? But I mean, we did know that that he had hit her, and beyond that, she was very good at.
For your family, was Fred always the prime suspect for your family? That you all.
He was. We didn't consider anybody else that would have a reason to kill Derby.
All right. That's it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I'll be sending an email with the statement and photos for you from back then.
Brian Linder.